Marriage is one of society's oldest institutions, but nobody receives a manual for making it work. In Nigeria, marriage is deeply connected to faith, family, culture, and identity. Yet behind the ceremonies are real people navigating communication, finances, expectations, parenting, extended family, emotional well-being, and sometimes conflict they do not know how to resolve. The 2024 Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey says more than one-third of Nigerian women aged 20 to 24 were married by age 18. So how well are we preparing people not simply to marry, but to build healthy marriages? Today on Spotlight On, we meet Mariam Baba, marriage therapist, mental health advocate, and founder of the Northern Therapist. This is Marriage Beyond the Wedding. So welcome to Spotlight On, Mrs. Mariam.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I think this is really an interesting topic for me. And like behind the scenes when we're talking, you mentioned, oh, I'm an OG now. And I said, no, not an OG when people like you exist. Let's start with you. Who are you before or beyond the Northern Therapist?
Okay, so like you said, my name is Mariam Hassan Baba, and I'm someone that happened to realize that there's something concerning about our marriage institution. I grew up in a home where my dad had 4 wives, and they had unique relationship. He had unique relationship with each of the wives. And, you know, there were so many things that I took away from that environment. And I realized that if people had, you know, some sort of tools or skills, they could do marriage better. And yeah, I found myself in counseling. And after a while, I shifted into, you know, marriage therapy. And here we are.
So what made you choose marriage therapy, even though you mentioned that the uniqueness of the polygamous family you came from actually spoiled that? What made you choose marriage therapy?
Yeah. So just like I said, it's a very funny story actually. When I was applying to the uni, I just needed a job, something that could help me as a wife in Northern Nigeria. At my time, most of us were groomed to, you know, just get married after university. So not necessarily to work. So I was looking at a career path that even if I don't practice would be like something that would enhance my experience as a wife, right? And I saw counseling and I'm like, let me just go for this. At least I would be able to be a good wife, to be a better, daughter-in-law and all of that. And then I got married, right? So 3 weeks into my marriage, I knew I had to, you know, preach what I am talking about. And that was how it started for me. That was how it started. Then I was doing like general counseling. And then from my marriage, I knew that this is not as I hoped it was going to be. Even with somebody with a background, it was quite different. And I knew that if I didn't do anything about it, I was not going to survive in that marriage. So I started using some of the skills that I had. And luckily for me, at that particular time, I, you know, attended a workshop on strengthening families. And it was just so interesting that I used some of the skills in that workshop in my home, started using it with peers, and then that's how the Northern Therapy started.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. You mentioned key things, not just in your time. I think largely before the 21st century, or let me say from the 2010 to date is what really changed. It's been go to school, just get married. You don't necessarily need to use the certificate. And again, some people don't even go beyond secondary school. I remember there was a classmate that got married at JSS3 and I was like, even though I don't know what life is at the time or was, I was like, is this not too early? Yeah. So I think it's a society thing that we need to prefer solution to. Nobody says people should not get married, but at least get married with enough knowledge to navigate through that life that you can't graduate from except you die or if the marriage collapses, and nobody prays for that. So after more than a decade working with people, what has surprised you most about relationships?
So I would say what I realize is people actually go into relationships without understanding what the relationship requires from them, you know? And once you don't know what a relationship is requiring from you, you cannot navigate that relationship successfully. So a lot of people jump into relationships without realizing that, in as much as I'm going in there to get companionship, to get, love, support, and
Friendship.
friendship, all of that, but it also requires something from me.
You.
Hey, so it's not just about, the institution or the spouse that I'm going to have the
Into.
relationship with, but it's also about what is required of me. So how ready am I? Do I possess these things? Are there things that I need to work on? Are there things that I need to be aware that I don't have at the moment? Because that changes your mindset and that changes your reaction when certain things are required from you and you don't have it. But once you go in there without realizing that there's some sort of expectation from me, then it just goes a different route. So that's one thing, like, I realize sitting on my table, that a lot of people don't know that the marriage institution expects something from them as individuals before
the marriage.
Yeah.
Talk about readiness.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah.
We prepare so much for the glamour, the wedding, the event center, the dresses, and all of that. And we don't prepare for marriage. I think one of the people that actually break a bit of the jinx officially, because there are people doing marriage counseling, premarital counseling before Mrs. Mariam Lemo. But with that premarital course that she released at some point, I think it went a long way to change some certain things. But again, we're still really fixated on the preparation for the wedding. So in your opinion, what are the key ingredients to get ready for marriage?
Yeah, so the key ingredients, first I would say, is self-awareness. As an individual, whether you're a man or you're a woman, you need to understand who you are as an individual, what your priorities are, what your purpose is in life, and if you're ready for companionship, if you're ready for that level of companionship. Because marriage is not, a one-day thing. It's not like an office, hours that you spend just with, some other people. Like this, you're doing life together with somebody, and everything that affects them directly affects you, their choices, their mindset, their dreams, their weaknesses. So you need to have that self-awareness. Are you ready to go with that? And then also, it's something very important that we need to know, that we need to also know how to communicate. Because fun fact, nobody is born a wonderful communication.
We learn
when it comes to, especially when
marriage.
It comes to marriages. The communication is a skill that you have to learn, right? If you don't know how to express your thoughts and your feelings clearly without, pointing out at somebody, all of that, you would not be able to connect with your spouse and really, express your thought and your feelings. So people need to understand that in order for you to be successful in a marriage, there are certain skills that you have to learn. So you cannot wing it. You cannot just, if you want to be a very good doctor, you have to train to be a doctor. You want to be a caterer, you have to train. And then you want to do marriage, which takes like a significant part of your life, and you're just going there with vibes.
White checks, God forbid. I mean, I think that's the exact picture we should paint. It's just the vibes, and that's why so many marriages don't even last a year now, especially in our region. Why the name Northern Therapist?
So the Northern Therapist is actually what it is, the Northern Therapist, because throughout my training, trying to be a professional therapist, I realized that there are so many people in the coaching, in the counseling field, but most of them are not Northerners and most of them are not Muslims, right? And
so they cannot really relate with the way things work.
So I realized that, I did a lot of internship. I realized that people come in that are Northerners and they are Muslims, and some of the tools that they get, some of the advices that they get would not really work
for them,
for them, as
due to culture, religion,
and all of that. So I decided that, okay, how about, I understand my culture, I understand my religion. So how about I tailor fit whatever it is to suit the whatever it is that we are doing, and that was
right then.
we decided
And that
Northern
name, that word, Northern
Yeah.
Therapist, Northern really matters because
Yeah.
marriage does not happen outside culture.
Yeah.
And because
True.
you know what our people lack, you know what we need, you know what we need to improve on.
Yeah.
So that Northern Therapist actually makes a lot of sense. So now let's go into something a bit more deeper. What makes marriage in Northern Nigeria distinctive?
Yeah. So just like we said, the culture. Northern Nigeria is a place that is very rich in culture. We are very, very traditional, right? In as much as we learn, we try to, be accommodating of new things, but we are also very conservative. And the same applies to our marriages. We don't have institutions where people learn what to expect in the marriage institution. And because of our conservative nature as well, you don't get to learn exactly what marriage looks like with your parents. I'm not sure a parent would sit you down and say, okay, look, here are conflict resolution skills that your dad and I use. Most of us don't even know
Very
that our
difficult to
parents
get.
have,
Conflicts.
disagreements, right? So you don't really have somebody to look up to. And there are so many things as well that the culture promotes in terms of how a man should just be brave whenever, and just talk about
Take everything
emotions,
in.
take everything in, and how as a woman, especially in a marriage, you need to just have patience, persevere, and just keep everything in as well. And for the most time when people go with this, they get stuck at some point, because really, like, outside of your culture, you're still human, and you still need that you still need to take your well-being seriously. You still need to have an outlet to express yourself. You still need to be, right? So these things catch up with us in the marriages, and then we realize that, what, this is not working. And sadly, that's how a lot of people, lost their marriages, even if it did not end up in divorce, but it ended up in a marriage where you're just like roommates, or you're just co-parenting, but you don't have like a connection as spouses, or bond, because you're not communicating, you're not being like safe spaces for each other, you're not carrying each other emotionally. And this is what we sought to make better at the Northern
Therapist. And that's really important. Like you said, we don't see our parents as the role models to look at in marriage, because they are not expressive due to culture. No mother would want to sit a daughter down and say, oh, this is what you're supposed to do in your marriage and all of that. I remember speaking to a younger sister, and she got married before me this period, and what she was telling me as a young adult, because she was just 21 and she's been married for 3 years plus at the time, and then she told me, Ade, this, I need to tell you this, and all of them. I'm like, yes, well, because of course there are other experiences, and I'm like, oh my God. She said, I can't discuss it with mama. I can't discuss this with anyone. I'm like, well, you can discuss with me, because I'm also in the same institution as you, just that this time you're older than me in marriage, not by age and all that. So there is no avenue to discuss. And this is what we need to go back to our parents say, and we need to do better as parents now to make sure that we actually embody that teaching characteristic to always put our children, there is no too much masculinity or too much femininity. Let there be balance. That's what I would say. So I believe at Northern Therapist, you look into that and do more awareness on that. So which cultural values genuinely strengthen marriages?
So the cultural values that strengthen marriage to me is that communal feeling, trying to be together and just have the same goals, the same ideologies. It helps you to go further in your marriage. And outside of that also, with the Northern Nigerian families, you can see that we love to nurture. We are nurturing. So that also is something that helps marriages. But just like I said earlier, it is very important that we are aware that regardless of the culture that we have, we as individuals are the primary actors when it comes to our marriages, right? And no matter the kind of support that the culture is giving you, if you yourself as an individual that is a primary actor is not ready then that cultural support is not going to help you in any way. And one thing I want to share here is at the Northern Therapist, when we do our premaritals, so it's a session that we do with couples together, right? So during those sessions, couples tend to understand themselves, not even, outside of even marriage, outside of preparing for marriage, you get to understand yourself as an individual. And we've seen it in a lot of sessions where people are realizing a version of themselves that they never had to sit down with. Like, I did not know I needed this, or I didn't know that this was something that about myself. And it's really like empowering to, see yourself in that light. And it also make people see the marriage institution as something that really, really I need to prepare for. Because look, all these things I'm discovering about myself. Look, all these things that I don't even know I need, but then I need these things. Look what my identity is. And those kind of things make people more invested into what they are going into. And we see that shift, right? So people come into premaritals and they are all, excited about the wedding plans. They're not really focused. And first few questions you're asking, and you see like that calmness, you see that, retracting and going back to what is really, really important. Yeah.
So that's Jameen. I believe so much that we should do better, and people like you should be more empowered to do this, and people should patronize this, because when it comes to therapy, Northern Nigeria is so far behind. People believe that if you're not mentally unstable, you're not this. Even when you said maybe you're emotionally stressed, people see you like, are you okay? It's or something like that. So we need to create more awareness, enlightenment.
Or you're not spiritual enough.
You're not spiritual. That's the key thing. Spirituality is what we always link to. And all of that. So it's something that we need to do more content, amplify things like this, so people understand that beyond all of this, blood flows through our veins, and we would feel emotions, different type of emotions. So which expectation can make healthy communication difficult?
The expectation that you need to be understood all the time, it can make healthy communication really, really difficult. The expectation that your truth is universal, right? Because most times, or sometimes, a number of times, there can be your truth and the truth of the other person. Because the same people can experience the same situation and take out like different beliefs or different experience. They can all be in the same situation and take out different experience. And that is true. So in marriages, it is less about who is right or wrong and more about how do you understand my truth, right? So when people can look at things that way, like, okay, yes, it doesn't look this way from my end, because like 6 and 9, you can be seeing
the analogy,
and I can be seeing it
at
9. And no matter how we want to argue, is the same thing. But what if I step aside and look at it through your lens? So that's how healthy communication happens in marriage. You cannot be overly intellectual about feelings, right? Because you're dealing with how people feel, what matters to people. So even if something is minimal to you,
it might be
big. Matters to your spouse, and you're minimizing it, then you're hurting their feelings.
Oops.
Yeah.
That's really big. And those are the things like, in this 1 year, I've learned that seriously, there's a lot of compromises, and sometimes you need to come around to this person's perspective and vice versa. It can't be one-way traffic.
And also, it's important that we are also aware that just because I'm seeing it from your perspective and I'm, trying to be empathetic does not mean I'm endorsing what you're saying.
Yeah.
So that's where most people get it wrong. It means that, okay, maybe I'm taking away my own belief and adjusting it with your belief.
No.
I can be empathetic, I can see your point of view, but it doesn't mean that I have to, absorb it as my own point of view. And I can understand it. And if we're going into each other with curiosity, just last night I was having a final couples therapy with a couple, and they mentioned something. They said we want us to kind of like love our interests. Like, I love literature, I love theater, I love arts. I just want you to love all of that. And he also mentioned the things that he loves, and I said, how about you look at it this way? Just be curious about what is it about this art that you love what does it make you? Who does it make you when you're, leaning into the eyes? And just, what does it give you? What feeling does it give you? When you go into that with curiosity, just trying to see what it does for your person, slowly it can also, you can be interested in it. But if you go from a place of, what, because you like this thing and I have to like this thing, then it's not going to
work, because at some point someone needs to just break down and it would not end well.
Exactly.
With this, we'll go on a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues, and this is just the beginning. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's still Spotlight on, and we are with the Northern Therapist with a lot of nuggets on marriage, which you need to pay for if you need to get a session with the Northern Therapist. Thank you again for joining us, and welcome back. Let's continue with this conversation. The last thing that I took was, yes, we can learn from each other's interests and maybe try to enjoy it in our own way.
Yeah.
And if we don't do that, it can lead to something else, maybe chaotic or something. So I really just want us to go deeper into all of our issues that we see on everyday life. A very glittered wedding, all of that, and in 2 months the marriage crashed or something like that. Are some people taught how to enjoy marriage but not necessarily the way to communicate within it?
Yeah. So I'll say that's also a mirror of the society. I keep going back to the society because when it comes to marriage, that's the blueprint. What the society expects, what the society defines. And that's why when you're getting married, the first thing everyone wants to support you with is the ceremony. There are people that have never experienced as much love as during their wedding. You get a lot of gifts. Your aunties that maybe are strict with you are now kind with you. Everyone is, and it's all leading towards the wedding ceremony. And outside of that, also, there's some sort of preparation that goes through the marriage as well. But we also see that leaning more into the woman. In my family, there's a tradition where a wife is being taken around her uncle, her aunties, just to give her advice. And it's mostly
and all of that.
And it's always ki hapuri, yinayi, barina bari, ari ibada, and you just, whatever it is, just, and make sure you're not involving third party. Make sure whatever it is, you're bearing it between the two of you. And, people go into their marriage and whatever they're experiencing, they remember that, okay, all these things. I remember when I was getting married, there's an auntie that is very dear to me. She told me, Mariam, you see, everybody's on board right now celebrating all these things that we're buying. You just need to see, I want this, and everybody is buying. Do you know why we're doing all of this for you? It's just to let you know that you're loved. And as you go into this chapter, whatever you see or whatever you experience, remember this love and keep helping.
Whoops. Right. I wasn't expecting that.
Right. And that kind of
stick with you
would stick with me if I did not have other outlets of learning that that happening was not going to work for me. But I see that with a lot of young couples that come for couples therapy as well, where they don't just want to let anyone down. People have spent a lot to unite us as a couple. Our parents have invested. My mom is a good woman. She's seen as a good wife. My dad is a respectable man in the society.
So I should not disappoint them.
And whatever I'm seeing, let me just take it. And that is what we emphasize. Honestly, I would always say, if you're a couple to be, then you need to experience our premarital session, because we teach couples how to communicate. We teach them how to have conversations that are very difficult, because even as a society, I'm not sure anybody teaches us how to have difficult conversations, and we avoid them. And if it works for you outside of a home, it really cannot work for you in a marriage, because you're coming back to this person, and the more you're not having that conversation, the more resentment is being built, right? And then it goes to a point where you have checked out of that marriage. You don't believe that marriage, you don't trust the marriage can give you the needs that you have. It can support you. It can hold space for you. And that is why I would use this opportunity to call on parents. Like, you as parents, as grandparents, we don't also have the blueprint of what it takes to build a marriage. Marriage goes beyond, being beautiful for your spouse. I will tell you for a fact, when I was getting married, I thought that was it. Like, you just have to be beautiful, you just have to cook the right meals. And as a husband as well, I talk with a lot of young people, they feel like they just have to provide. But we can see the reality of today is like, your wife need more than that financial provision.
Yes, emotional support.
Support her emotionally.
Being physically present.
Physically present. She needs you to validate her thoughts and her feelings and all of those things. And men sadly are not, groomed to provide all of that. Unfortunately. And because they're so busy trying to look for what it is to cater for the family, they feel like that is enough. And that is why we have a lot of, issues with young couples where the husband feels like, but I'm doing everything that I was told I need to do as a spouse. I'm providing the best of food, the best
clothing,
the best of clothing. You have everything.
All the necessities.
But the wife opens her mouth and says, when last did you actually spend quality
time with me?
When last did you validate my thoughts and my feelings? And it's something we also need to understand, that life does not pause just because you're married, right? So you still experience life, you still go through your challenges, insecurities, you still go through your fears. None of this stuff just because you're married. And that is why, as a couple, you need to be equipped with the tools to be able to support yourself as you do life together. Because if you don't have those tools, how do you navigate life? And that's why you see people in marriages still having their emotional needs being supported outside of the marriage.
Subhanallah.
And that creates gap in the marriage. And that emotional needs being supported, it can be with the mom. You see like a young wife married, and the person that is fulfilling her emotional needs, it's her mom. She's always on the call with her mother.
Or siblings.
Or
friends.
A friend. And for a spouse, for a husband, it can also be his colleagues. Or it could be like somebody that he met, a friend that really wants to listen, And then before you know it, the marriage was supposed to provide that safe space for them to be able to hold space for each other. But now they are all doing it with other people outside of the marriage. And this is where intimacy starts to build up, right? The intimacy that you're supposed to build with each other, now you're outsourcing it. So if you don't teach couples how to build that emotional safe space for each other, they would look for it. And if they don't find it within themselves, they will definitely
look for it
outside of marriage.
This is sadly our reality, and most times I think it still boils down to communication, that we don't communicate, and the societal norms that we grew up to see, like a man cannot cry, a man cannot be emotional, the woman cannot show weakness because the man is providing. I think that's all. It goes beyond all of that, and it's two-way traffic. While the man is providing and giving you presence, time, and all of that, the woman too should do the bit that she needs to do. It's not just about cleaning the environment, cooking, and all of that. So it's a lot, and it's a conversation we should really focus on every other day. Do you think pressures, or what do you make of pressures that come from extended family members?
That plays a significant role, I'll tell you, because everybody has their expectation of what a marriage should look like. Everybody has their standard of what a marriage should look like. And if couples don't align their values as individuals, like as a couple, as a minute couple, and they allow the projection of the extended family to come in, it can end up confusing them. It can end up, making them drop their priorities and, move, to other priorities that are not necessarily theirs. And the extended family, they have their priorities, which is through the lens of their own experience, their own pains, their own, values. And it's not necessarily yours. Every individual can have a unique marriage that is outside of yours. So, for example, if there's a couple that decide that the man is going to be helping out with most of the domestic activities because the wife work, maybe a certain career that makes him to be able to do that. and you have another extended family who is more traditional. He goes out and the wife is at home. And then this extended family is now projecting that, you know what, you can't be doing domestic activities because as a man, you know, that contradicts the reality of their own marriage. So this is the point where I would always say that as you know, a society, we love to help, we love to teach, but we need to also know that our help and our teaching is not universal, it's not standard. If you want to assist a couple, you need to listen to their own reality, and whatever advice that you want to give, you want to ensure that does this advice fit their reality. My husband and I had an experience where, you know, somebody was giving us advice and we just, you know, kept quiet. And when we were in the car, we're just laughing. We're like, if we say we want to practice this,
of course, there will be a big
problem. It's not going to work. Right. So I got a 9-to-5 job. And I was supposed to be closing by 6 p.m. And it also had like working hours on Saturdays. And, you know, my husband was like, you know what, you can do that. And then the family member was just telling me, like, you can do it. Your husband is supporting you, blah, 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 blah. And when we got to the car, I'm like, do you think this can work for us? He said, no, this cannot work for us because we know our reality. We know what we want from each other, how we nurture each other. We respect that. So just because somebody has told me like this can work, just push it, does not mean that it's going to erase what I know about the reality of our relationship, right? And you know what? We came to the car, we laughed about it, took away what we needed to, but it did not change our decision. So couples also need to understand that not every good advice belongs in your marriage. And you can respect that. You don't have to fight everybody that gives you advice. Oh, we're not like that. You're just drawing more, attention to your family. Thank you so much for your advice. And then when you go home, do what works for you. But now, how can this work if you don't have a better understanding with each other?
And communication.
With each other.
That's really big. And like the role play, the case studies you're giving is making it like more, I would say, resonant. Because it's your reality. It can't be another person's reality. And somebody that is a traditional person cannot necessarily agree with what you do as a 9-to-5er or somebody that works or a career person. So we need to be able to distinguish between, and it comes down to, say, for instance, a traditional family and they see their son marrying someone that is a career person. I think that's why some of them will probably kick against it or something like that. But at the same time, sometimes it's what you despise so much that now becomes your reality. That's why it's very key that with faith and culture and the way you do things every day, you're able to reflect and do what's best for you, because people would always have opinion.
And that's why in the beginning of the conversation I said the first thing that you need to think about as somebody that wants to get married is self-awareness. Who am I? You know, what do I want? Am I somebody that can, you know, stand for what I want regardless of the influence of the people that I love? So if you're somebody that is from a traditional home and you're trying to get married into like somebody that has a career, you want to build a modern family, am I the kind of person that is able to stand up to people that really that I care about for my values? Because there are some of us that are naturally avoidant, we're not confrontational, we don't know, we kind of like enable people around us. And if you know that this is the kind of person that you are and you're not yet ready to face those fears and be the next version that requires this journey, then it's best to be aware and then be like, okay, maybe if I was better ready for this, I would have gotten married to this kind of person. But for right now, because this is my reality and I really don't mind. Again, an interesting thing you would know is that sometimes people don't even get married for what they truly want. They get married for convenience, right? And look at what is happening right now. Because of the way the society is, people want to marry for legacy. You have a family friend that is also, you believe in them. You want the relationship to continue even much after you guys. And then you talk to your son, you talk to your daughter, and you say, you guys, you know what? Let's get married. And then we throw you a flamboyant marriage. We set you guys up. But nobody is sitting down to look at these couples, these young people that you want to tie together as husband and wife for the rest of their life. Have you sat down to understand who they are and what they want out of life? Have you set them up with the tools that they need to navigate this life that they didn't even find themselves? If they found themselves, it will be easier to navigate because it's a choice that they made actively. But this is a choice that you made for them and you're not giving them any resources. And then I'll tell you a funny fact. At the Northern Therapies, we get more couples therapy than we get premaritals.
Wow.
And we are always emphasizing on premaritals, but people skip premaritals and then couples therapy. That's after the marriage and things are going on.
Unfortunately, that's the situation and we need to address it more. Yeah. Let's take another short break. The conversation is interesting and we continue after the break. Back again, and it's been an amazing conversation with the Northern therapist, Mrs. Mariam. Let's take a few more questions before we go into the next segment. Just a brief answer from you. Do men and women enter marriage with fundamentally different expectations from your experience?
Yes.
Why?
Because women are more emotional, definitely. Mm-hmm. So they get married for that emotional connection, that emotional support, love. And men are more practical, so they get married for systems and structure. Yeah.
That's big. System and structure, emotional. Two wide gaps.
Yeah.
Are we sufficiently preparing young people emotionally before marriage?
No, as well. Because we prepare people to just, this is the next chapter of your life that you need to transition into. You're done with school, what next? And we don't pay attention to their emotional well-being, how they process their emotion, what they need to work on, what they need to do better. We just push them into the marriage institution.
Sadly so. Where is the line between preserving culture and questioning practices that no longer serve families well?
I think it's being open-minded to know that, yes, our culture is beautiful. And of course, culture makes everything beautiful as well. But we need to also know where we need to pause and see what's not working and be open-minded to what would work instead.
That's also significant. More than 1 in 3 Nigerian women aged 20 to 24 were married by 18, according to a national statistics report. Now, let's get a bit more practical. Even though from the beginning of the conversation, you bring case studies that made it more practical. What are the problems couples bring to you most often?
Yeah. So mostly is unmet expectation, because there's this whole picture you have of what a marriage should provide for you or what your spouse should provide for you. And then you get the aha moment that this is not what I signed up for. So that, and then we can talk about, financial constraint, and even that is still expectation because maybe somebody was not honest about their financial capacity and all of that. And then communication by and large, which is still part of unmet expectation.
That's big. So unmet expectation is the bane of this. What does emotional neglect actually look like inside a marriage?
Wow. Emotional neglect could cause resentment, and resentment, according to Dr. Gottman, who studied marriages and why they last and what causes divorce, is like one of the reasons for divorces. So emotions are very important, especially for women, but even for men as well. I've, had interaction with couples where a man feels lonely in the marriage, where a man feels like he's simply a paycheck in the marriage, his feelings don't matter. And, we talk every day about, women be more emotional, but men have feelings too. And they got married to also have somebody that can cater to their feelings as well. So it's very important that couples are aware of these things and know that they need to not neglect themselves emotionally, because beyond, feeding you, clothing you, taking care of the home, you can get all of that outside of the marriage, right? But since you've decided to be a couple, it means that you are responsible to kind of nurture yourself emotionally.
Yeah.
And if you neglect that, then the marriage in itself is now questioned.
Big, because I was just trying to reflect on all the things that you were saying. I'm like, oh yeah, if a man feels like they're just the subject of the paychecks,
Yeah.
what they give in and all that,
Yeah.
and the woman feels, oh, it's just to clean the space and all
Yeah.
of that. It's really a big thing, and it should form part of neglect that we don't pay attention to.
Sure.
So, how damaging is unresolved resentment?
It goes through straight to divorce. When there's resentment that is not resolved, it leads to contempt, and once there's contempt, it leads to stonewalling. And once you have those three, according to Dr. Gottman, then definitely divorce is.
Why do some couples repeatedly fight about different things when the underlying problem is actually the same?
Because they are not paying attention to the underlying things, you know, because for everything you talk about, for everything, maybe if they say a woman nags or a man is always talking about something, there's an unmet need. So beyond what they are saying, can you sit down and have a conversation of what does this represent for you? Why is it so important? So that even if I don't see why this is such a big deal, I can actually now lean into the importance that it has for you. So couples need to pay attention to each other and create that space, because communication is not just about talking like most people think. You have to create that space where people feel vulnerable enough to open up to you about what their needs are and what a priority is for them. But if that space is not there, we would always dance around, oh, it's because you didn't buy this, or it's because you didn't come back early, or it's because you're not taking care of the kids well. Beyond all of that, there's a need there. I need to feel safe before I can actually express.
Important. Money, parenting, careers, in-laws, phones, and social media. Which creates the greatest pressure today?
I think each plays its pressure on different scale, but I just want to zoom into social media right now because it's something that a lot of people use as, a way to just detach and just, distress, decompress, and just forget about their real life issues for a bit. But at the heart of that, while you're doing all of that, you're also neglecting the elephant in the room, which is your marriage. You're neglecting the conversations that need to be had, whether it's about parenting, whether it's about finance, and you're just postponing something that is difficult for you. You don't want to face this. You're not ready for this, or this environment is something that you're not really happy about at the moment. So let me just distract myself. And we all know how social media is, how the algorithm will just feed you to keep going on and on and on. And once you found like something that makes you feel happy for a bit, or something that makes you forget about your pains or whatever it is for a bit, you keep on going into it. And the more you're going into that, the more gap that you're having as a couple.
Marriage. Yeah. So what does a healthy disagreement look like?
A healthy disagreement is you guys being respectful of each other, being curious about the other person's reality, regardless of what your own stand is. So I can disagree with what you're saying, but I'm still curious to know why it matters to you. I want to learn about what your perspective looks like. So if couples can embrace that curiosity, because you and I right now can disagree on something, but I'm very sure because we're not spouses, we can do it, amicably. Yes, in a respectful manner. I don't agree with you, but it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you have less values. It doesn't mean you don't have principles. I'm not looking at the conversation. I'm not allowing the conversation to define you. But what couples do is like you're disagreeing and then suddenly you're now remembering other things and you're labeling the person and you're, looking at the person in the wrong light. So couples should know that curiosity goes a long way.
Yeah. So what are 3 habits couples should stop normalizing?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say one habit you should not normalize is that your spouse is going to be the only person that would make you happy, right? As an individual, you need to know that you need to have other outlets to fill up your emotional tank. Depending on one individual, to fill up your emotional needs is not practical, right? And then don't normalize that your marriage was going to thrive by itself. No marriage is going to thrive by itself. You need to put in the work, have the difficult conversations, initiate, get time for date night, get time to talk about yourselves beyond the bills, beyond the children, make space to make that marriage thrive. And then the third one, I would say pray about your marriage. pray about it because it's a big deal. It's serious. It's important. You pray about less important things, right? So pray for
Why not pray for the
wisdom,
marriage?
pray for wisdom, pray for clarity, pray for the marriage, and you would see, because there's something that prayer does for us. It kind of makes us understand that this is a situation that needs work on. If I pray about something, that means it's something that needs to be done, something that I need to do something about it, right? And it's that prayer would shape my mindset to know that there are certain things that as an individual I need to do, and there are certain things that I need to learn and pursue. And that makes you actively invested in nurturing the marriage. So praying is something that is underrated, and people should adopt that as well.
So that's key. I believe our viewers would take 1 or 2 points from that and be able to implement in their daily lives. I'm learning as well. So can two good people still have an unhealthy marriage?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you can be good, you can be smart, you can be spiritual, you can be intelligent. But a marriage is not just about you alone as an individual. You're sharing life with somebody, you're sharing values, you're sharing principles, you have to validate them, you have to be curious about them, you have to try to understand their world as well, their inner world as well. So you cannot be a good person in isolation. You have to be a good person to your spouse, right? And even during conflict, I always say that as couples, the way you fight sets the emotional tone of your marriage post-conflict. If you're fighting with kindness, with respect, it strengthens your bond, even beyond the conflict. But if you're the best of spouse, you're so good, you do all the good things, but when you're having conflict, you're the meanest person, you do like the meanest things, then it reduces the bond that you have with each other. And over time, you wake up and realize that resentment has built up over time.
From resentment is always the big issue or the elephant in the room in marriage. So in our society, why does saying we are seeing a marriage therapist sometimes sound like admitting that the marriage has failed?
Yeah, because we assume that everybody was born with the skill to do marriage right. So my parents were married, my grandparents were married, my uncle is married, so I know how to do marriage. And we see having difficulties in marriage as a personal failure, right? But right now, there is a welcoming conversation about, you know what, nobody is born to do this marriage right. We just talk about you can be a good person and not be a very good communicator. You can be a good person but not understand the emotions of your spouse, right? And all these things are not things that you naturally know. So marriage therapy would help you to understand yourself better in this reality that you're in. Because again, we need to understand that as you're getting married, you're transitioning into a newer version of yourself that you don't even know much about, right? So navigating a new phase in your life and also holding space for another person, that's a whole lot to do. And that is why it is important to seek support from marriage therapists, from, people that you respect in the society, that you also trust that they won't be sentimental. And that is why I also welcome couples to have marriage mentors. You can have people in the society that you respect how they've done their marriage, you respect their views, and you both agree that, you know what, we respect this person. We can talk to this person about. It
can't be one-sided.
Yeah, it can't be one-sided. It has to be somebody that you both agree on, and that's a marriage mentor that you can always go back to when you need clarity.
Yeah. So is therapy only for marriages in crisis?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, people do premaritals to understand themselves and to also get skills that would help them to navigate the new life that they have. Nothing is wrong with them, right? And in the early years of marriage is transitioning period, trying to understand each other, what works for you and what does not work for you. You're going to be learning a whole lot of things that you did not even anticipate, even at premarital level, right? And marriage therapy would help you to settle in, help you to have a rhythm, help you to navigate what's a priority for you and what not what the society is projecting for you. And you're not necessarily in crisis. And also sometimes you evolve, right? You get married right now. When I got married to my husband, I didn't have any career. I was just at home, right? But now I have a career that is taking away a part of me. When I got married to my husband, he was just a master's graduate, but now he's a doctor. He travels around. He does a lot of research. He's so busy. That was not the man that I got married to. So if we don't have tools that are helping us to keep up with each other and how to show up for each other, how do you think the marriage is going to be?
It would not survive, certainly. So because you're a therapist, I would really want you to take us through what actually happens in a marriage therapy session in a very brief explanation.
All right. So what happens is people come in and, they think that when you come in, you're going to be crying or you're going to be answering so many difficult questions. But it's really to hear your story, to understand what your goal is as an individual, what do you want, and to prefer tools for you to be able to achieve those goals and to keep you accountable. Right.
That's really, I don't know, we've spent a lot of time and I need to just keep it really short for us to end. If you could change one thing about how Northern Nigeria prepares people for marriage, what would it be?
I would mandate every couple to have premarital counseling. And premarital counseling, I would say not just to go and, watch videos or read books, but actually sit down with somebody and learn to converse together, learn to have that conversation, learn to also understand yourself as you prepare for this journey. It helps a whole lot. From the couples that we have had premaritals with, we see how they embody the whole marriage thing, how they are able to fight really, really well, how they are able to bounce back from whatever challenge their life throws at them because of the experience that they had. And it also prepares them to shift what their priorities are. Because just like I said, people walk into premarital session with a different goal. And during that, they realize what a priority should be for them. So even if I was not a marriage therapist, I promise you, I would advocate that people really, really do
Thank you. So let's quickly do a rapid fire. It takes a few minutes, short answers only, or yes or no if it works for you. So complete the sentence. Marriage is not
a bed of roses.
Okay, a healthy marriage needs
honesty.
Never marry someone hoping.
Never what?
Never marry someone hoping
that they are going to fulfill all your needs.
Okay, couples should talk more about
couples should expectations from each other.
Expectations. One word couples misuse is
we're not communicating.
Okay. Therapy does not mean
that you have mental issues.
Culture should never
normalize people not talking in their marriages, talking about their marriages and what they are going through.
Faith teaches us
resilience.
The healthiest thing a spouse can say is,
you matter to me.
Oops. Mariam Baba wants to be remembered for
strengthening families.
Strengthening families. Imagine, that's great. Then can a struggling marriage become a genuinely healthy one?
Of course, with the right tools and support.
It's been really exceptional talking to you, and I really want us more time. So when next you pop into Abuja, let's talk more on things. So a wedding may take a day to build, but building a marriage takes years. Like you said, 10 years, over 10 years doing this marriage therapy thing, and it's changed a lot of things. So perhaps a stronger conversation is no longer simply about whether marriages survive, but whether the people inside them are heard, respected emotionally, and in all ramifications when it comes to marriage. And that's what you really reiterated for us. Mariam Hassan Baba, founder and lead marriage therapist at the Northern Therapist. Thank you so much for joining us on S24 television, and we look forward to speaking to you on what you do, because there's a lot to still talk about, what time would not permit us. I am Halima Abdurrauf, and this has been Spotlight on. Bye for now.